Does Roger Stone believe he is a target of the Mueller investigation? Let's ask former Trump political advisor Roger Stone. He's the author of a new book out tomorrow called Stone's Rules: How to Win at Politics, Business, and Style. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Great to be here.
We'll talk about the book, although, really, my whole discussion with you is woven in and out of what your different rules are in the book.
There's a lot of books. There's a lot of rules in there that the president ought to read right now.
The question they set up in the intro there was, do you think you're a target? Have you been contacted directly or through counsel by anybody from the special counsel's team?
I have not. But, for example, you read in the paper, and you reported at MSNBC and CNBC, that Mr. Mueller is probing my dinners with Rick Gates and my meetings with him at the Trump Tower. Wants to examine the period in which we worked together in the 80s. There's a couple problems here. First of all, based on my recollection, I have one dinner with him with other people to discuss the makeup of the New York delegation to the Republican National Convention.
Dramatic scene, that raid this morning by FBI agents who I should say haven't been paid for a month on account of the government shutdown, but more on that later. Roger Stone really has been a central character in conversations around the Russia investigation ever since it began, really. I mean, he's publicly played a role boasting about what he's done and hasn't done and really sledging Mueller for what he's investigated. But these charges relate specifically to alleged obstruction, lying and witness tampering in connection with his attempts to get information from WikiLeaks about hacked Democratic National Committee emails that it released during the 2016 presidential campaign. You might recall they were a source of constant pleasure and material for candidate Trump.
This is exclusive CNN video. This is what happened this morning before sunrise, just before 6 a.m., when Roger Stone, longtime Trump associate and advisor, was taken into custody by the FBI. There's a moment of audio on here that I want to play for everyone, because this is what the first sounds that Roger Stone woke up to this morning was the FBI pounding on his door and shouting this. I want to just play this for a moment.
FBI, open the door.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Longtime Trump advisor Roger Stone was arrested on Friday by federal agents and charged with 7 felonies. None of the charges had anything to do with Russian collusion or election meddling, but you'd never know that from the penalties he faces. If convicted, Stone could die in prison. Nobody in Washington seems to find that punishment excessive. Many have cheered it. Officially, Stone was charged with lying, something most of our political elite engage in every day. But his real crime was flamboyance. Stone has spent the last 40 years giving the finger to the people in charge. In the end, they got him. They always do. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. America is a great country precisely to the extent that it's a fair country. Fairness is the most important American idea. It's the foundation of all others, and equality before the law is the purest expression of it. That's why the Roger Stone case ought to horrify anyone who has followed it. Left or right, Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. 9 years in jail for lying. That's what prosecutors have demanded that Roger Stone receive. How disproportionate is that sentence? Let's put it this way. James Clapper and John Brennan are both confirmed perjurers. They did it in public. They'll never be prosecuted. At this moment, they're getting rich on television. Meanwhile, for the crime of sending explicit sexual photos to a child, a serious felony, former Congressman Anthony Weiner got just 21 months, and he served less. Weiner was an admitted sex offender, but he was also a close personal friend of Bill and Hillary Clinton's. And in the end, that's what mattered most. See how this works?
Expected this result. And I think also the other thing that's going to happen out of this is that there might be an appeal, but Roger Stone has been very clear that he's been out doing fundraising appeals. It's not easy to try to fund a legal defense, and he's been having to have a legal defense for quite a long time. To go into an appeal now, he'll have to redouble his efforts, but there weren't a lot of people in this last week that were coming to his defense. Even in the court of public opinion, regardless of what was happening inside the courtroom, it doesn't seem like he's a man with many friends at the moment.
President Trump today praising his Attorney General, William Barr, for taking charge of the case against longtime Trump advisor Roger Stone as Democrats call for an investigation. Our correspondent Doug McKelway is live at the White House with details. Good morning, Doug.
Morning, Ed. The four prosecutors who won the conviction of Roger Stone, recommending that he spend up to 9 years in a federal penitentiary, have now stepped down from the case. One of them formerly associated with the Mueller prosecution team. Their withdrawal is an apparent protest against the Justice Department's decision to significantly reduce their sentencing recommendation. One Justice Department source telling Fox News, and I quote, the department finds 7 to 9 years extreme, excessive, and grossly disproportionate to Mr. Stone's offenses. The original sentence of up to 9 years sparked an infuriated President Trump to fire away on Twitter, criticizing not only those four prosecutors, but also the judge in the case, Judge Amy Berman Jackson, I should say. Quote, is this the judge that put Paul Manafort in solitary confinement, in all caps, something that not even mobster Al Capone had to endure? And then more Trump tweets on that same subject this morning. Quote, congratulations to Attorney General Bill Barr for taking charge of a case that was totally out of control.
9 years recommended by four people that perhaps they were Mueller people. I don't know who they were, prosecutors. And they don't know what happened. They all hit the road pretty quickly. Look, you had somebody just recently, you saw what happened. He got 2 months. He got sentenced to 2 months for leaking classified information at the highest level. Who's that? They treated Roger Stone very badly. They treated everybody very badly. And if you look at the Mueller investigation, it was a scam because it was illegally set up. It was set up based on false documentation and false documents. You look at what happened, how many people were hurt, their lives were destroyed, and nothing happened with all the people that did it and launched a scam. Where's Comey? Where is Comey? What's happening to McCabe? What's happening to Lisa and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? What's happening with them? It was a whole setup. It was a disgrace for our country, and everyone knows it too. Everyone, including NBC, which gives a lot of fake news. The fact is that Roger Stone was treated horribly, and so were many other people. Their lives were destroyed. And it turns out, you look at the FISA warrants and what just happened with FISA, where they found out it was fixed, that it was a dirty, rotten deal. So when you look at that and you see what happened to Roger Stone.
News of the hour in D.C. now. Breaking news. We're now learning Bill Barr has agreed to testify before the House Judiciary Committee comes as President Trump praises the AG for intervening in Roger Stone's sentencing. James Trusty, former prosecutor at Justice Department. James, how you doing? Welcome back.
Hey.
Talking about something today other than impeachment, all right? But here we go. You say the whole sausage factory has been made public. What does that mean with regard to the sentencing, the recommendation to pull it back, et cetera?
Well, look, it's not all that uncommon for the attorneys that went to trial, the line attorneys, to have a very strong view about sentencing by the time they get towards that sentencing. They've been living that case. They feel strongly. And in this case, they calculated the guidelines in a very aggressive way. But what usually happens is the supervisors up the chain say, you know, great job, guys, but calm down. It's not an 8-year or 9-year case. It doesn't have to be that harsh here. And they will walk it back before you ever see any of it make the press.
Attorney General Bill Barr responding to a firestorm of criticism from Democrats and the media over Roger Stone's sentencing. Barr's new comments in just a second, but first, Democrats are whipping themselves into yet another frenzy over the Stone case, and one congressman not ruling out another impeachment.
We're not going to take our options off the table. We don't wake up in the morning wanting to impeach him. You know, we want to work with him on prescription drugs, background checks, and infrastructure. But we're not going to let him just, torch this democracy because he thinks that he's been let off once and we're not going to do something about it.
Angry Democrats aren't just going after Trump. They're now demanding Attorney General Bill Barr resign or face impeachment too.
We should all be calling for the Attorney General to resign. And if that guy won't resign, then the House should start impeachment.
And Barr ought to be ashamed and embarrassed and resign.
That is so destabilizing to the rule of law and so demoralizing.
This is an abuse of power that the president is again trying to manipulate federal law enforcement to serve his political interest. What a sad disappointment to our country.
And breaking within the last hour, Attorney General Bill Barr reacting to all of it.
To have public statements and tweets made about the department
about our people in the department, our men and women here, about cases pending in the department, and about judges before whom we have cases, make it impossible for me to do my job, and I'm not going to be bullied or influenced by anybody. And I said at the time, whether it's Congress, newspaper, editorial boards, or the president, I'm going to do what I think is right.
Americans, we need to be concerned tonight, and we should also be frustrated about a lot of issues, a lot of unequal justice under the law, because we have egregious 9-year sentence, Roger Stone. Well, thankfully, the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, they stepped in independently to amend what was a complete and total miscarriage of justice. And it gets worse. You have, for example, the corrupt, compromised, congenital liar himself, Adam Schiff, while calling it a direct attack on the rule of law. I'll explain and educate you in a second, Congressman. You stand by. You need a little bit of a history lesson. You need to know how our justice system works a little bit better before you speak out. And the other idiot congressman...
All right, John, the media sees the sexy story of Trump versus Barr, but they missed the fact that Barr was basically telling Trump, don't worry, I got this.
I got this. And, you know, the Democrats seem to overlook Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive power is vested in the president. The top law enforcement officer is the attorney general. If he wants to counteract decisions of the line prosecutor, that's his dang job. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. And what was wrong with it is the egregious, you know, pre-dawn raid on Roger Stone and throwing the book at this guy because they don't like his politics.
So, yes, I understand how every member of the cabinet would prefer to have the chief executive just say, you've got this. But in some cases, like Eddie Gallagher, who was unfairly treated, the Navy SEAL, or in the case of Roger Stone, the president having an opinion, and if appropriate, the president using his ability to give clemency or pardoning, those are his rights. And so I don't think there's any question. And I don't see a rift between the attorney general and the president. Just the opposite. I see an attorney general doing what he needs to do and not being afraid to say that the line attorneys, and by the way, a very questionable federal judge, in Amy Berman Jackson. You might remember she's the one that gave Eric Holder an extra 2 years to slow walk Fast and Furious. I don't blame the president for doing what he's doing, which is communicating to American people because they want to hear it now.